Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sela Social Studies. All right, so today we're going to talk about George Washington. We're going to touch about George Washington. We're not going to dive into the whole deep thing because you could spend like a whole semester of school studying George Washington. I don't think I've explained this to you yet, but words are on the screen. So when I talk about them and you have to take notes on your note sheet, you can go ahead and pause the video. You can go ahead and write down the words. And it kind of also helps me keep a flow of where we're going. So George Washington, who is he? What did he do? Why is he so important? Well, first off, George Washington is our first president of the United States, right? He was born in 1732 in Virginia. He lived on a plantation when he was younger. His father died when he was a bit younger, if I remember correctly. He winds up going to school at William and Mary. That's a pretty important school in Virginia. A lot of our founding fathers went to William Mary. And Washington goes there because he wants to be a surveyor. He wants to survey the lands. And he gets his certificate or his license, her surveying license from William and Mary, and becomes a surveyor. So you have a young George Washington in Virginia. He's doing his surveying, he's meeting people, he's going around, he's making a success of himself, and he's making a name for himself. Right. So remember, he's a British subject at this time, 1732. We're still talking about British subject. Remember, George Washington does not become president until after we have won the revolution. So he joins the British Army. And during the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, Washington is a lieutenant colonel in this war. So he's fighting for the British. And think about that. Washington fought for the British. Meanwhile, he leads the army of the Continentals against the British in the War of the Revolution. So he's a lieutenant colonel in the British Army. He actually is not that good of a lieutenant colonel. He actually loses a good couple of battles against the French during this war, and actually he kind of quits almost a couple of times. He marries Martha Custis, who is a wealthy widow. You know her as Martha Washington. And he moved to a large plantation in Mount Vernon, Virginia. Now, Mount Vernon, Virginia is still where Washington's plantation is. You can go there and visit it. It is the home of George Washington, but it's a huge plantation. While he was there, he's elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, and he's a delegate to the Continental Congress, the people who are trying to figure out what we are going to do with the British. So as this time goes on, he is selected as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army for the American War of Independence, our Revolutionary War, and he holds a pivotal role of winning this war. He was well loved by the public, very popular. His soldiers absolutely adored him. Many soldiers fought this war just for Washington. They weren't getting paid. It was miserable conditions. He was losing battle after battle after battle. Finally, he would win one, and it would swing his way, and then lose and lose and lose. So Washington, like I say, he lost when he was a British lieutenant colonel, and he actually loses a lot of battles against the British during the Revolutionary War, but they love him so much they would do anything for him, which, like Valley Forge will go ahead and show you, they did anything to sit there and be under Washington. He is elected to the position of the President of the United States, selecting John Adams as a vice president. He is our first president of the United States. It wasn't even called president at the time. They were like, we should call him emperor. We should call him like leader forever. They were trying to think of all these names. And he's like, no, just call me president. Kind of like the book club president. I mean, that's the type of title I should have. I should not be any part of a, like a monarchical king type deal. I just want to be a president. Give me that type of name. He is elected unanimously by all 11 electors. That means like everybody went and turned and voted for Washington. He is the guy who won. There was like, nah, he's our guy, right? Washington was over 6 foot tall, while many of the people at the time were not. He was one of the only guys who had really good military experience. He was a born leader. Everything that Washington did when he was a president created something called precedents. Precedents are something that people who were after you follow. So he created a presidential cabinet. with all of the people around him that he thought were smart, who could do a good job. That's why we still have cabinets today in the presidency. Washington only served 2 terms, and every president thereafter would serve a maximum of 2 terms, except for Franklin Delano Roosevelt when we're talking about World War II. However, like, people are like, no, you serve 2 terms. What do you think? You're better than Washington? No, that's it. 2 terms. Each term was 4 years. Washington, when you talk about dinners with guests at the White House now, no, Washington. Washington started all these things. Things that our president does today are all thanks to George Washington.